So we started the church in our living room on the second Sunday in the month of June in the year of 1992. So Josiah was, 16 months old. That morning, I didn't know who would turn up. That morning, we had 20 people, including us, there. And that evening, we had 22. Within 3 months, we had 60 to 66 people crammed in that area. And I'd promised the neighbors that we'd only be there for 3 months. So the big issue is, where do we go? 3 months we're there, and we still had no vehicle. We hadn't drawn any money at all. So any funds that came in was given to missions. We didn't take a cent, and we're still living off of that $200 a week. We found a building.
Well, folks, I thought that we would invite you to our church. This is our building that we're leasing right now, and we just finished some renovations on it. And we'll endeavor to show you what it's all about. So why don't you come in with us this morning and see what our service is all about and be a part of us. God bless you and enjoy yourself with us.
There's a big step of faith. The first thing we needed $10,000 to put a mezzanine in, a foyer in it for the children, because it's an empty shell. And miraculously, someone very close to us gave us $10,000. I'd never seen $10,000, but they gave us $10,000. It was my brother Craig and his group that built the mezzanine floor and the entrance of that building. And so we started it in there, the Father's Day of 1992, and we started there, and the first speaker we ever had there was a man called Trevor Chandler, who was our spiritual father. And so he came to the area, and that morning we had 70 people turn up in church. We then leased another building on Kingston Logan Road in Underwood, and it was the top half of the building. And so we took a big step of faith, because this lease now was going to be like $30-something thousand a year. My mother had just come on staff now, so she was working with us. She'd already worked a number of years at the previous church, and she's now on staff, us 7 ladies. And we had 1 or 2 others starting to get involved. So we decided to take that lease, which is a big step of faith. The ceiling was so low, you could touch the ceiling in that building. It was amazing. It was air conditioned, but there was too many people to really have the air. But I can just remember putting my hand up, touching it. There was just, the stage was only this high because we couldn't go any higher. Then after 3 years, we took the other half of the building, which was a total lease then of $50,000. And we were in that building for a total of, I think it was like 5 years, which was great. So altogether then we're 6 years old. Then the building we're in now came available. A man that was so generous to us and helpful by the name of Matty Ranala. And at that time, this building was a commercial industrial area, and it was called Uniline, or Fin Blinds as it might have been. And in fact, this building that we're in was the very building where my mother worked in the 70s. And there was a lot of problems in home with dad and with alcohol. And she was working in this building, and it was the managers or the bosses of this building that shared to her about Jesus and invited her to church. This building had significance in that this was the building she worked at. In fact, the altar of our church is actually where she worked on the process line. And so this building came available for us to lease. Now the lease at that time was like $70,000 a year. Doesn't sound like a lot, but I'm telling you, that's a lot of money for us. We didn't have any money. We were in a very, very tight, very hard financial time, and it was just empty. There was no ceiling, there was no walls. It was empty. There was nothing in here. And they estimated just to do the basics, which wasn't the ceiling, everything else was $70,000. And we didn't have a cent. And I always thank God for the board. Colin Lobb was on the board then, Andrew Hannum on the board then, as I remember ago. And it didn't add up on paper how we could do it, but I just asked them to trust me. In fact, what Sandra and I did was we became guarantors in that area for $80,000 on our own home. We didn't ask the board anything else, but we put ourselves on the line and towards this building. It was just a lease, and we leased the building for 5 years. And I said to Brother Matty, I'll lease it on the condition, if you ever sell it, let me buy it. And he kind of laughed at me and says, I don't know how you could ever afford to buy it. You can't even afford the lease. And I said, well, I don't know either, but I walk by faith. 5 years later, now the church is 11 years old. He came and said, I'm going to sell it. You want it? And I said, I want it. So again, we worked out with Sandra and I being personal guarantors because we didn't want anyone in the church on the board was guarantors. But Sandra and I, as personal guarantors, were able to buy this building. I think it was like $1.4 million. Big step of faith. And there was a real move of God happening in the church. People coming in, I couldn't list to you the number of wonderful people who may not be here today, but wonderful people, if they hear this, just thanking them for their generosity, their seed, business people who came for a season and who sowed finances into the church. And I could never, ever talk about the history of this church without acknowledging these people. And we moved and we were able to buy another 6 properties corresponding beside us, which was just incredible. And then we rezoned everything into a place of worship. And that's what happened. And so then we decided the next stage would be we're going to start to build a new building. We started in faith. Someone gave us a gift, a donation of $800,000. Remember when I said I'd never seen 10,000 before? Well, I'd never seen 800,000 before. Now, not that I saw the physical money, but I saw the check that was put in. And with that, we started that building. Now that building, just a slab, is an acre of concrete, 4,000 square meters, fully suspended. There is something like 80 plus pillars. Each pillar is roughly 900 in diameter, with an average of 25 feet deep because of the clay. And that's not counting 1,200 square meters of concrete underneath in the area. And we just started in faith. Now the economy was good, and we actually got approached by 2 competing banks offering us a couple $1 million. They came here to my office. The economy is good. This is before that recession. Offering us that churches were spending millions. Logan, up the Sunshine Coast, Mount Gravatt areas, getting properties. And I met with the board, and the offer by the bank coming to us and offering us millions to do the building was so tempting. And I remember I sat at the board, and the board was leaning toward, let's do it. But there was a check in my spirit, and I can't begin to thank the board for just listening to me and saying, Pastor, we understand, but we're just going to stand with you by saying, let's not do it. It was only just after that this recession came in, which I still believe we're experiencing today. If we had accepted that loan, we might have built a building, but we would never be able to afford to pay it. It affected people, affected business people. We wouldn't be able to have any staff. And I've known of 4 or 5 churches that went into building programs who are no longer the pastors because of the pressures. I fully understand. So I tell people it's the reverse. So instead of us borrowing and then having 15, 20 years to pay it off, we are building it for the 15, 20 years and we'll occupy it, I pray, debt-free. But each step is a step of faith. I could tell you every nut and bolt in that place. If it had just been the money given and we built it, I wouldn't know anything. But because every single thing we did, from fence rail to a piece of concrete to a door to a wall, every single piece I know because we've had to step in faith and raise that money. I mean, just this financial year, we needed 30-something thousand just to enclose it. 2 people stepped up to take care of that. Miraculously, I think 33,000 came in. Then we needed 20-odd thousand just to clean up the front concrete and the rails. A couple of people stepped up. It was like $25,000 came in. One person, a stranger, a minister, came and knocked on the door and said, God's told me to give you $5,000. I mean, that's not 800, but when you're doing bolt by bolt, I was just overwhelmed. A stranger, or someone I had known in the 70s, never talked to since, came in, and that pastor, the pastor of a church, is still today such a great blessing to me by his act of love. It was when I joined staff at a large church back in Mount Gravatt, they had a building program where they were going to build an incredible auditorium that hadn't really been done before. I was not the youth pastor, I was on youth staff and my wife was in staff. And we gave. I remember I'd never been in an airplane before, and in 1981 I went in a plane and I was in Singapore and I bought a watch, and I felt so convicted that I hocked the watch. I don't think it was worth much, but I gave what I had there. So we were a part of a building program, and then in 1983 I was a part of the team in the dedication of that building. That building still stands today. What happened in 1983 blessed me. Now I'm no longer a part of that. And there's another group that now has it and runs very successfully. It's a Hillsong church. And I'm excited what Hillsong is doing there. But I'll always remember that I was a part in a little way, of a team that built that building. And that's exactly what I want to see here. So now we're at this point to where we are doing the walls, which could be around $25,000. Now, $25,000 seems nothing compared to the hundreds or millions we spent. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. Someone said to me just last week, what's your timing? And I said, do you mean Chronos or Kairos? And I said, what do you mean? I said, well, Chronos means literal time. I don't know the literal time, but I believe in Kairos, which is a moment in time. There's a moment in time it'll happen. It could be where a supernatural seed comes in of $2 million, we get it done. Or it could be another several years, step by step. But we're going to build this church because of the grace of God, the generosity of people, because people believe in the vision that this is not about what we're doing to benefit us, but what we're going to do in our community to reach out to others. That's, to me, is the big story. It's not what's done in my time. It's what's going to happen in generations and others, or schools that want to come in here, and other events want to come in here. And it's about the beacon in our city of Logan saying, God can do things. When I drive down the highway, I see big mosques. I see Mormon temples. I see Sikh temples. I see Buddhist temples. I see all these things here, but I want to see the church. I want to see the church. I don't own anything. My name's not on anything. I don't bank money, don't count money, nothing else. But whenever we do something, I partner in it because I believe in it and it's for future. We're surrounded by a great cloud of witnesses of those who have gone before us. And just like that church that Hillsong is blessed with, and God bless them, doing a great job. I was a part of it before they were there. And before I was there was others that did things. And so it is. I don't know the future of what this property will be. But I know this, we're laying the foundation for what God will do. You know, we're entering this next stage. Just to do all the framing, and there's the image that you'll see there of all the framing we're doing there. We have a choice of doing it in timber or in steel. Now the timber will be cheaper. The steel is going to be like $25,000 fully done. But I need you to prayerfully consider. You may be watching this and you're part of our church family. I know times are tough. I know things are hard. But when we can learn to be generous, even in our own difficult times, I believe there's a blessing that follows. I'm not asking you to do what I won't first do. I will put together and raise $1,000. Would you imagine if 25 of us said, I'll work with a team or something and raise it? Or maybe there's some who can give more. You might not be able to do 1,000, but you could give 200, and you could find another 4, give 200, and you can do a team. You may be watching this and you don't attend our church. I understand that. But you may feel that you could partner with us or sow a seed or help us. Not to do that to forsake your church or your fellowship, because that comes first. Your tithes and your offerings belongs in your church. But if you're able to extend or do something, you might be overseas and you want to do something in that area. This is only one stage. We got more to go. Someone said to me, how much more do you think you need? Oh, probably $2 million. So maybe someone writes a check. I've never seen a check for $1 million. The biggest check I've seen is $800,000. But who knows? I need a Kairos moment, a moment in time. Maybe it'll be done within a year, maybe done in 10 years. Maybe I'll get it so far and it'll be my son who'll carry it on. I don't know. But I'm not living for a building. I'm living for Christ. If you would like to join us, it would be such a blessing. As I look back and I think of all the people who are with us and no longer with us who've contributed, I can't begin to say thank you. Blessings on you. But I also believe there are many others that God could speak and partner with. Together, the burden is easy. God bless you as you consider partnering with us.